Hello and welcome. This is Cujo Sound, WhiteNoiseTrash, and this is the Unity series, probably the final episode that we're going to do. But what we're going to do now is that we're just going to create a level with all the tools that we have created before. And let's get to it. Here we have a level, the level that we have been working on previously. I've added the first-person controller to it, just as an example. And we're just going to be briefly running around here. The only sound that is on the level, I have completely stripped it of sound. No, not completely. The only sound that is left is some metal click from some object that falls in the beginning of the level. So let's see what we can do about that. In the beginning, let's start by adding the footsteps to our character here. And by that, we're going to be creating a new object called sound controllers. You don't necessarily need to do that. You can also place it on the character, but I'm going to do it in my sound controllers here. So let's make a new one under here, and we'll call it footstep, and we'll have one called footstep sound controller, just to keep the naming convention. We have a jump sound controller, and we'll probably have a land sound controller. Good. So now we have here these scripts, these game objects, and what we're going to need is that we are going down into our scripts folder here, where I have placed, where I have placed all the scripts that we have previously made. And what we need is that we need our sound random controller on each of these, and they're not going to play on awake. Sound random controller and sound random controller. We are going to add, here we are, let's say the footstep controller. In our sound folder here, I have added a bunch of stuff that we're going to need later. So let's just say, see, once I click this, we get this problem that I can't drag and drop them. That is why we are going to, as I have previously mentioned, create a new tab, create a new inspector window, place it here so that we now have two inspector windows, and we can lock one of them so that we can drag and drop to one and control with the other one. So here we are. So we are going to click our sound controller footstep here and lock it by clicking the lock up here. Now I can click all these and see the properties of that here, and I can change whatever I want over there on that game object. So down here, the sound file size is step 1 to 10. I'm going to drag it over here. We're going to have retrigger prevention on, so that means that it will never, ever trigger the object here in element O, and it'll just keep on replacing these. We're going to add a minimum pitch of 0.9 and a maximum pitch of 1.1. You probably won't notice this kind of pitch change, but that's what we're going to do. So up here on our FPS controller, I have added a jump sound controller and a footstep controller. We can just briefly go into the script here. See, I have commented out the previous jump and land sound and the footstep sounds. It still has a clip of these. We're not going to need that. I've added my public sound random controller, jump, footstep, and land controller, and footstep controller. You can see here, whenever the player takes a step, play footstep audio. I haven't done anything to the logic about this. I just know that this plays whenever the character takes a step. Sound random controller.trigger, footstep controller, and it plays our footstep. So if we add our footstep controller now over here if we're going to lock this and add our footstep here to this footstep sound, we should have footsteps whenever the character moves. And as you can see over here on your right, it changes between these files so that element O is never played, and it plays a random one between 1 and 9. That's how that works. So what we're going to do is that we're going to drag and drop our jump controller here. We're going to drag and drop our land controller here. These are also triggered in the same script. So somewhere in here, it's going to trigger the land controller and the jump controller that is there. So on our jump controller, we're going to add, we're just going to unlock this one so that we are now looking at the jump controller. You can see here, jump sound controller. And we want it also to play between 0.9 and 1.1. And we have a jump sound down here, which is 1 to 5, and it'll just randomize between them 5s. So whenever we press play now, it should jump. It is a little loud, but for the sake of the example, you can also see that it randomized the pitch from something to something else, which is nice. And we're probably going to change the volume a little bit, but I would prefer if we did that over in the mixer window, which we're going to do in a bit. So we have here, we're going to unlock this one, look at our land sound controller, lock it again. And we have land sounds here, land 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're going to, there you go, drag and drop. And it works 0.9, 1.1. So when we play, it also has a land sound now. As you can see, now our character has sound. So we are going to add here under sound controllers, outside of sound controllers actually, we're going to call it sound ambience. And in here I have a bunch of sounds, a wind noise. Let's unlock this one so we can look at the wind. A couple of different noises that I have recorded. There's one with raindrops. Just for the sake of the example, we can go through these. Now, I have here sound ambience controller. We're going to be making a new game object, and we will call it ambience wind howl. And you see, if I just drag and drop a sound here, it will automatically create a audio source so that this will play. So now that when we press play on the game, because it's set to play on awake, this sound will play, the howling noise. And already, as you can tell, this level has already come much more to life just because of this simple noise playing in the background. We're going to add all of these. So let's say if we duplicate this one, duplicate a couple of these, remember to save once in a while. Let's say we have here wind noise loop. And we have another one called wind noisy loft. And we have another one here called outdoor loop. Oop. Wind underscore wind raindrops. And we can delete this last one here. So now that we click these, we can just drag and drop. So we have here the loft wind howl. But something's wrong about this. The loft wind howl. Okay, good. Loft wind howl. There you go. And the noisy loop is this one. I haven't been too cool about the naming conventions, but you get the point. Outdoor loop. And the raindrops. So now that we press play, we're going to have all these playing at the same time. It's probably going to be really noisy. Let's try it out. Yeah, sounds great, right? So let's start by lowering these noises here. So in our audio mixer, we're going to create an audio mixer. We're going to call it the ambience mixer. In our ambience mixer, we are going to create groups for each and every one of these. So we have loft wind howl, noise loop, noise loft, and all that. So we're going to here say we want these new groups here called loft wind. We're going to make a new one called noisy loop. And we also have a noisy loft. And we have an outdoor loop. We also have our raindrops. As you can see now, these are actually all coming out of one another. We don't want that. We all want them all to come out of the master. We can rename, no, can't rename the master. Okay. Anyway, here we are. Let's drag and drop all these so that they all come out of the master so that they are independent from one another. So now we have all these, as you can see. So we're going to go down to our loft wind howl here and say, as you can see, we have two inspector windows still. We want this one here to come out of our loft wind howl. There you go. And our noise loop, we want this one to come out of our... Actually, that was the wrong one. The noise loop should come out of the noise loop and not in the noisy loft. Anyway, we have our outdoor here. And our raindrops to come out of this one. This is like 90% of what I do, just drag and drop and click stuff. I'm not really designing stuff. That's like just part of the job. It's great, love it. Getting really good at clicking and dragging and dropping. So now that we press play, we'll see them all, the noises coming out of each. They'll all have their own group down here. So we have a snapshot here. We're going to call this one the outdoor snapshot. And let's start by finding a good mix for outdoor, shall we? So let's press play here. Start to control it. Edit in play mode. We haven't set these to loop, which is also a problem. So all these, exit play mode because you don't want to edit stuff in play mode. The noise loop, set it to loop. Because I've made these loops kind of short. The reason why I've done so is because it proves the point that it's possible to, with shorter loops, to get a full soundscape running instead of having really big long loops that contains everything. So by using, let's say, 3 shorter loops, you can create a more randomized and versatile soundscape than if you have one big loop that you have totally designed. That's good for if you want randomization and stuff going on in your soundscape. Let's try it out again without not having to take the loop here. Edit and play mode. Yeah, let's keep that as our outdoor snapshot. We're going to make a new one here called our indoor snapshot. And the indoor snapshot is of course going to be different because we want our transition to be in it. So let's try and run into an indoor area and then set what we think would be better in there. Now we're in an indoor area. We're going to go here, say edit in play mode, indoor snapshot, and then alter this. Good. So now that we have that, we're going to add our script that can control if we're moving from indoor to outdoor. In this level, you can't really do much because there's these blockades going on. Probably the people who made the game, they have this option to open and close these. So we're going to take this one and drag it up here so that we can actually enter this room. Good. Now we're going to enter this room here, and we are going to create a controller that can fade between the two snapshots that we have there. So by that, we're going to start off by creating a new game object here called transition controllers. Just for the sake of level designers, we're going to make it called sound transition controllers instead, so that they don't get pissed off by we using their naming convention, because they overrule sound people for some reason. Let's create an empty one here. We're going to call it outdoor to small house indoor. Good. And by that, we're going to drag and drop our audio snapshot crossfade here. We are going to select the mixer, our ambience mixer, and by snapshots, we're going to use our outdoor snapshot and our indoor snapshot. And we're going to use a smoothing of 0.5. Now we need to drag and drop this item here so that it's just below the floor. Here we are. It's going to make it slightly bigger. Yeah, 4.5. Just make it long enough like this. Now, the Z one. We're going to make it so that once you enter the room, it's going to be a longer transition to when you enter the room, like this. So now we have a transition that goes into the room, but is over when you're outside of the room. So travel direction is going to be along the Z-axis. Let's try it out, see if it works. I doubt it, but let's see. So now that that is established, we should probably add some a little bit of effects here in the mixer. You can always click these effects here. So let's say on our ambience mixer, we want on the master, actually, let's say we want a low pass. So let's try and press play here. Edit in play mode. We are now outdoor. So we're not going to use this low pass here. We're actually going to use it on the indoor one. Say 2000 hertz. So now we have a quite clear distinction between indoor and outdoor. Oh wait, right now we are in outdoor, so there we go. This is the sound of outdoor. Once we go into indoor, you'll see it fade to the indoor one. It's not the most elegant fade right now, but that can be tweaked. So here we have our sound transition controller, and that means that you'll be able to see it here. The fade to outside kind of works kind of well, but so now we're indoor. That's one kind of fade. So let's in here in our, now that we have established that this room can now over here, that we can now move from indoor to outdoor in this specific room, we're going to add a new object and we're going to call it sound triggers. Let's just say here the sound triggers, and we want that to have a new game object called indoor sound trigger, like that, and we are going to create a sound collider trigger on it. Here we go. This is a collider script that I changed a little bit since I showed it. what's up with it is that it has the ability to check if you're retriggering or not. So it has a private box collider, which is the collider that we're going to use, and it triggers on both enter and exit of the collider. Now you can set some booleans here in the inspector view. Trigger like this, and this means that if this is on, it'll trigger every time you enter, and this will trigger every time you exit. If you leave these off, it'll only trigger the first time you do it. So down here should be like that. And let's say here, if actually it should say here that if enters, there we go, enter sound. If there is no enter sound, then return, because we need it to return in case we haven't added something because we don't want it to play. So if no exit sound, return. Here we go. This should work. Yep, no compile errors. Okay, so this means that when you enter the collider, it'll trigger the sound random controller called enter sound that I have added up here, and it'll check if has play is true or false. And if it's false, then it'll play the sound. Now, if retrigger is false, then it'll set has play to true, meaning that the next time you enter it, it won't play this sound. Not the most efficient code. You could probably do this a million ways, but this is one way to do it. So I have added a bunch of sounds that we're going to add to our script now that we can then use. Let's start by moving this here and say, now we're inside this room here. So let's say in here, if we walk to these colliders, you can scale without creating any fuss. So here we now say that once we enter this area, it'll make sure that it plays the enter sound. So we're going to create an empty object and we're going to call it our metal rattle collider. And we're going to add our sound random controller to it. Here we are, no play on awake. And it's going to contain, I have these bunch of sounds here, which are metal rattle. And we're going to lock this one and add metal rattle to this one. Here we are. So now the first time you enter this, because we've set it like this, down here. Oh, it's because we locked it. Good. In our indoor trigger here, we are going to say that it can't re-trigger. So it can only trigger once we enter this. We're going to drag and drop our enter sound there. So now that we can do our scripting down here. So now that we enter this collider located here, it should trigger the metal rattle sound. Let's see if it does. When we enter the collider, it should play this metal rattle sound. And it does. So this metal rattle sound that we have down here, which is being played from our script here, and this metal rattle here should, let's say over in our mixer, let's make a new mixer called the ambience ad hoc. So we'll just add our metal rattle here to say that it should come out of our metal ambience ad hoc over here. So now that this triggers here, we're going to add, let's say, some reverb. Let's just add reverb and then see if that works well. As you can see here in the mixer, whenever we can solo it. see it's playing from there. Let's try and make the room much bigger. The room decay, let's say 10 times, and reflections are like that. Let's just make it kind of loud, so that should work. Yeah. So what you can do with that is that you can then add a mixer, and then you can run around, and then you can have these triggering all the time. You can also have a script that says whenever you enter this trigger, then over time it becomes possible to re-trigger it again. Or you can say that every time you enter the trigger, it should just start playing, which means that you can mark your room up and say, whenever I'm inside this room, play random noises at a specific time rate. What else is there? We have our audio trigger listener and so on. Yeah, but you can also add that over in the mixer. You can add compressors and stuff over here. But let's, for the sake of the example, go here and say on our jump sound controller, we still want it to be our audio trigger, like that, and we'll call it the jump sound. And on all of our ambient sounds, we're going to add the audio trigger. And we need to scroll down like this. The audio trigger listener, like this. And what did we call it? We called it the jump sound. So we're going to make sure that we have the same trigger name. So here, trigger name. And it is a listener, and it's going to pitch down listen, and it should pitch all the way down to 0 and come up to, yeah, over time, 3 seconds. Let's just put it like this. You can see the pitch goes down and it comes back up over here in the window. Now let's try and add the same script to copy component, and over here we're going to say isn't that possible? No, apparently not. Yeah. Paste component as new. Here we are. Here, paste component as new. Paste component as new. So now every time we jump, all of these sounds here should pitch down and come back up. And of course, we don't necessarily want them to be, let's say, all the way down to 0. So we could just say that we wanted half speed and we want it to come up at 0.5 seconds. Now, pitch release is 1. Let's make it 1 second. Here we go. We have pitch down 0.5, and we want to do it over pitch release like that. 0.5 and over 1 second, and 0.5. We want to do it over 1 second. So now every time we jump, it should just pitch down. As you can see, you can change this on the go, and you can add all these parameters and make sure that it sounds way better than this. But it's quite easy. Let's say you have a special jump sound that only plays whenever you jump from one specific platform to another. Then you can add this script and then call that sound the specific jump trigger, and then you can make this kind of whenever you land and so on. And I guess that's it. That's how you can set up a level really easily with all these scripts made. I know these videos are kind of lengthy, but it's just a couple of hours of study and then you can do this. There's tons of things that you can add. All these scripts can be expanded and so on. All these scripts, they're available at cujo.dk/scripts. And the advanced snapshot crossfade and the snapshot crossfader is sort of like directed by me, but made by Christian Schubert. And a lot of the other scripts are made with inspiration from other scripts that I have worked on and help that I've gotten in the past. So big shout out to Rune Holm and Jakob Schmidt, who also helped make some of these scripts and how to make this work. But it's really easy, and this is without any form of third-party software, and it's without any kind of super hardcore triggering to this and that. In the audio mixer, you can create an unlimited amount of groups and snapshots and so on. So you can even have snapshots blend between each other inside a room. So you can make two versions of one room, so it sounds different from one end to the other, and still trigger that the snapshot changes to the indoor one at the same time. Lots of things to be done. And if you have any questions, please fire away in the comments and we'll work something out. Hope you enjoyed this.